I was 8 months pregnant when my husband accused me of cheating. His mother's sick lie destroyed our family forever. Hi, everyone. My name is Emma, and I'm about to share the most heartbreaking story of my life. What I'm going to tell you will probably make you angry. It might make you cry, and it will definitely make you think twice about trusting the people closest to you. This is the story of how my mother-in-law's twisted manipulation destroyed my marriage, my family, and nearly broke me completely, all while I was carrying her grandchild. The perfect beginning. Let me start from the beginning. 3 years ago, I married David, who I thought was the love of my life. We'd been together for 5 years, and our relationship was everything I'd ever dreamed of. David was kind, supportive, funny, and we shared the same values and dreams for our future. His family seemed to love me, especially his mother, Linda, who treated me like the daughter she never had, or so I thought. David and I had been trying to have a baby for about a year when we finally got the news we'd been waiting for. I was pregnant. We were absolutely overjoyed. David cried when I showed him the positive test, and we spent hours talking about our future as parents, picking out names, and planning how we decorate the nursery. Linda seemed just as excited as we were. She was constantly offering to help with baby preparations, buying little outfits and toys, and talking about how excited she was to be a grandmother. She'd come over almost daily, bringing food and asking about my doctor appointments. I thought she was being the perfect supportive mother-in-law. Looking back now, I realized she was gathering information for her sick plan. The first signs of trouble. Everything was perfect until I was about 6 months pregnant. That's when David started acting different. He became distant, less affectionate, and he'd give me these strange looks when he thought I wasn't watching. At first, I chalked it up to normal pregnancy stress. A lot of men get nervous about becoming fathers, right? But then the questions started. Emma, have you been going anywhere while I'm at work? He'd ask casually. Are you sure all your doctor appointments are when you say they are? You've been getting a lot of text messages lately. Who are they from? I was confused and hurt by these questions. I was 8 months pregnant, exhausted, and barely leaving the house except for work and medical appointments. The idea that I might be doing anything suspicious was absurd, but David seemed genuinely concerned about something. When I asked him what was wrong, he'd just say he was stressed about work or worried about being a good father. I believed him because I loved him and trusted him completely. I had no idea that his mother was slowly poisoning his mind against me. The fake evidence. What I didn't know was that Linda had been working behind the scenes for months, planting seeds of doubt in David's mind. She'd make offhand comments about how some women change when they're pregnant and how pregnancy hormones can make women do crazy things. She'd mention stories she'd heard about wives cheating while their husbands were working to support the family. But the worst part was the fake evidence she created. Linda had been intercepting my mail and had somehow gotten hold of one of my old phones that I'd given David to recycle. She used it to create fake text conversations between me and a fictional lover, complete with intimate messages and plans to meet up. She'd screenshot these conversations and then accidentally leave them where David would find them. She also created fake receipts from restaurants and hotels, claiming she'd found them in my purse or car. She'd tell David she was worried about me and didn't know how to bring up her concerns. She painted herself as the loving mother-in-law who was heartbroken to discover her daughter-in-law's betrayal. The most twisted part was that she'd do all this while acting completely normal around me. She'd hug me, ask about the baby, and talk about how excited she was to be a grandmother, all while systematically destroying my marriage from the inside. The confrontation. The explosion happened when I was 34 weeks pregnant, just 6 weeks away from my due date. I came home from a doctor appointment to find David pacing in our living room, looking like he was ready to kill someone. "We need to talk," he said, his voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. I sat down, my pregnant belly making it difficult to get comfortable, and looked at my husband of 3 years. The man I loved more than anything in the world was looking at me like I was a stranger. "David, what's wrong? You're scaring me." That's when he pulled out his phone and started showing me the fake text messages his mother had created. "Who is Mark?" he demanded. "And don't lie to me, Emma. I have proof." I stared at the phone in complete confusion. The messages were supposedly from my number, but I had never sent them. They were explicit romantic messages to someone named Mark, talking about meeting up while David was at work and how much I missed being with him. "David, I have no idea what these are. I've never sent these messages. I don't even know anyone named Mark." "Stop lying," he shouted, and I jumped. David had never raised his voice at me before, not once in our entire relationship. He showed me more evidence, receipts from places I'd never been, photos that were supposedly of me with another man, though you couldn't clearly see the woman's face, and detailed accounts of my supposed affair that his mother had reluctantly shared with him. "Your own mother told me she was worried about you," he said, his voice breaking. "She said she didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was overwhelming. She's been trying to protect me from the truth for months." I felt like I was in a nightmare. Nothing he was showing me made any sense. I had been nothing but faithful to David, and the idea that I would cheat on him while pregnant with his child was so absurd that I almost laughed. But David wasn't laughing. He was crying. "How could you do this to me?" he asked. "How could you do this to our baby?" "David, please listen to me," I begged. "I have never cheated on you. I love you. I would never do anything to hurt you or our family. These messages, these receipts, they're not real. Someone is trying to set me up." But he wouldn't listen. In his mind, the evidence was clear, and my denials just made me look more guilty. The fertility test bombshell. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, David dropped another bombshell. "I got a fertility test done," he said quietly, 3 months ago. "My mother suggested it because she was worried about some symptoms I'd been having." My heart sank. I had no idea he'd had any medical concerns or that he'd gotten tested for anything. "The results came back," he continued. "I'm sterile, Emma. I can't have children. The doctor said there's no way that baby is mine." I felt like the world had stopped spinning. This couldn't be happening. We'd been trying to get pregnant for a year before it happened. We'd celebrated together. We'd planned our future together. "That's impossible," I whispered. "The baby is yours, David. I swear on my life, you're the only man I've been with." "The test doesn't lie," he said, pulling out a medical document. "My sperm count is basically zero. The doctor said it's been this way for years, probably since I was a teenager." I looked at the medical report, and it did look official. It had David's name on it, the clinic's letterhead, and detailed results showing severe fertility issues. But something felt wrong about the whole situation. "When did you take this test?" I asked. Living in limbo. I stayed with my sister for the next few weeks, trying to process what had happened and figure out how to move forward. My sister and my parents were convinced that something wasn't right about the whole situation. They knew me, they knew David, and they couldn't believe that either of us would act the way we supposedly had. My dad, who works in IT, offered to look at the text messages David had shown me. Within an hour, he determined that they were fake, created using software that could spoof phone numbers and generate realistic-looking conversation threads. "Emma, these messages weren't sent from your phone," he told me. "Someone created them on a computer and made them look like they came from your number." I knew it, but the question was, who would go to such elaborate lengths to destroy my marriage? The answer was becoming increasingly clear. Linda. We also started researching the fertility clinic where David had supposedly been tested. When we called to verify his appointment, they had no record of him ever being a patient there. The medical document was fake, too. The birth of my daughter. Despite everything that was happening, I had to focus on preparing for my baby's arrival. At 38 weeks, I went into labor. I was alone, scared, and heartbroken that David wasn't there to support me through the birth of our child. My daughter, Sophie, was born healthy and beautiful. The moment I held her in my arms, I felt a love I'd never experienced before, but also a profound sadness that her father wasn't there to meet her. I texted David a photo of Sophie when she was a few hours old, along with a message. Your daughter was born today. She's beautiful and healthy. I love you both. He never responded. Filing for divorce. After weeks of trying to reach David and get him to listen to reason, I realized that our marriage was over. He'd made his choice based on his mother's lies, and there was no coming back from the level of distrust and betrayal he'd shown me. With a heavy heart, I filed for divorce. I also requested a paternity test, hoping that proving Sophie was David's daughter might help him see the truth about what had really happened. The divorce proceedings were brutal. David's lawyer painted me as an unfaithful wife who had tried to pass off another man's child as her clients. My lawyer argued that I was the victim of an elaborate setup, but without concrete proof of who had created the fake evidence, it was hard to make the case. The truth comes out. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Linda herself. Apparently, the guilt of what she'd done was eating away at her, and she'd started drinking heavily. One night, about 2 months after Sophie was born, she got drunk and called David, confessing everything. She told him that she'd never liked me and had always thought I wasn't good enough for her son. When I got pregnant, she panicked at the thought of sharing David's attention with me and a grandchild. So she decided to destroy our marriage by making David believe I was unfaithful. She admitted to creating the fake text messages, forging the receipts, and even paying someone to create the fake fertility test results. She'd spent months planning and executing her scheme, all while pretending to be the supportive mother-in-law. The most twisted part was her reasoning. She thought that if she could break us up, David would eventually find someone more suitable, and she'd have a better relationship with her future daughter-in-law and grandchildren. When David called me after his mother's confession, I could hear the devastation in his voice. Emma, I'm so sorry, he cried. I was wrong about everything. Sophie is my daughter, and you never cheated on me. My mother, she's sick. She destroyed our family because she was jealous. Too little, too late. By the time David learned the truth, our divorce was already finalized. Sophie was 3 months old, and I'd spent months rebuilding my life as a single mother. The damage to my trust and my heart was so severe that I couldn't just pretend everything was okay because we now knew the truth. I want to be in Sophie's life, David said. I want to be her father, and I want to try to fix what my mother destroyed. I looked at this man who had thrown me out when I was 8 months pregnant, who had refused to even meet his daughter when she was born, who had believed the worst about me without giving me a chance to defend myself. David, I'm glad you know the truth now, I told him, but you made your choice. When I needed you most, when I was carrying your child and begging you to trust me, you chose to believe your mother over your wife. That's not something I can just forgive and forget. The aftermath. David has been trying to make amends ever since he learned the truth. He's in therapy, he's completely cut contact with his mother, and he's been paying child support without being asked. He sends gifts for Sophie and asks for updates about her development. But our marriage is over. The trust is gone, and I can't risk putting myself or my daughter through that kind of betrayal again. What Linda did was unforgivable, but David's willingness to believe her lies without giving me a chance to defend myself showed me something about his character that I can't unsee. Sophie is now 8 months old, and she's the light of my life. David has supervised visitation with her twice a week, and he's trying to be a good father. But we'll never be a family the way we once dreamed of being. Linda's sick lie didn't just destroy our marriage, it destroyed any chance of our daughter growing up in an intact family. Sophie will never know what it's like to have both her parents together, to have the security and love of a united household. Lessons learned. This experience taught me several painful but important lessons. First, never underestimate what people are capable of when they feel threatened or jealous. I never would have imagined that Linda, who seemed to love me, was capable of such elaborate deception and cruelty. Second, trust is the foundation of any relationship, and once it's broken, it's incredibly difficult to rebuild. David's willingness to believe the worst about me without giving me a chance to defend myself showed me that our relationship wasn't as strong as I thought it was. Third, always verify important information, especially when it comes from someone who might have ulterior motives. If David had insisted on being present for his fertility test, or if we'd gotten a second opinion, Linda's lies would have been exposed much sooner. Finally, sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who can hurt you the worst. Linda destroyed her son's marriage and her grandchild's family because she couldn't handle sharing David's love and attention. Moving forward. I'm still healing from this experience, both emotionally and practically. Being a single mother is challenging, especially when you're dealing with the trauma of betrayal and divorce. But I'm stronger than I ever thought I could be, and Sophie gives me a reason to keep moving forward every day. I've started dating again, slowly and carefully. I'm much more cautious about trusting people now, and I'm very protective of Sophie. Any man who wants to be in our lives has to earn not just my trust, but my confidence that he'll put our family's well-being first. David continues to ask about reconciliation, but I've made it clear that's not an option. We're focused on co-parenting Sophie and making sure she has a relationship with her father, but we'll never be husband and wife again. As for Linda, she's been completely cut out of our lives. David doesn't speak to her, and she'll never have a relationship with Sophie. The consequences of her actions cost her everything: her relationship with her son, her chance to be a grandmother, and her family's respect. Final thoughts. If you're watching this and you're in a relationship where someone is trying to plant seeds of doubt about your partner, please be very careful. Ask questions, demand proof, and don't let anyone manipulate you into making decisions based on fear or suspicion. And if you're dealing with a toxic family member who's trying to interfere in your relationship, set boundaries early and stick to them. Don't let anyone convince you that their meddling is coming from a place of love or concern. My story is a cautionary tale about how quickly a life can be destroyed by one person's jealousy and manipulation. Linda's actions didn't just hurt me and David, they hurt Sophie, who will grow up in a broken home because her grandmother couldn't bear to share her son's love. The saddest part is that none of this had to happen. If Linda had just accepted me as part of the family and embraced her role as a grandmother, we could have all been happy together. Instead, her selfish actions destroyed everything. I'm sharing this story because I want people to understand how devastating parental interference can be in a marriage. Trust your instincts, protect your relationship, and don't let anyone, even family, come between you and your spouse. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone avoid the pain and heartbreak that Linda's sick lie caused our family. Some damage can never be undone, and some trust can never be rebuilt. But life goes on, and sometimes the strongest thing you can do is start over and build something better from the ashes of what was destroyed.